Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you guys to Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Arts and Letters Committee web event called Your Right to Heal. We are going to start with the welcome by our president, Sarah LaConda Hillard Scott.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmouche. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Your Right to Heal, Journaling Through the Holidays webinar. I am LaConga Hilliard Scott, and I have the pleasure of serving as president of the Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter. I would like to thank the panelists for joining us this evening. We appreciate you finding value in spending some time with us this evening. I want to offer sincere thanks to the attendees and Baton Rouge Delta members who are seeking additional information on therapeutic journaling or just for being here for support as they engage in this informative webinar. Lastly, I want to thank the committee chair and co-chairs and committee members of the Arts and Letters Committee for having the vision and for putting in the necessary work to make this a reality. Thank you for your service and dedication to this community and for your sisterhood and service to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and to the Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter. I will now turn the program over to our chapter chaplain, Mrs. Lois LaDuff, who will lead us in a meditation. Mrs. LaDuff.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Let us center our hearts and minds on this inspirational word. John, 3rd John and the 2nd chapter says, "Behold, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." Let us pray. Oh Lord God, we come tonight acknowledging the Holy Trinity. Father, we ask forgiveness of our sins. Father, we ask that you continue to bless Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter, all of our officers and all of our members. We're so thankful for our Arts and Letters Committee for having us together tonight. We thank you, oh God, for allowing our presenters to be here. Let them share with us tonight that we may be uplifted and inspired. We ask that you will help us to realize our need for healing and for your grace, and that through this webinar, we will be restored. Help us to remember that you always work on behalf of those who love you constantly, powerfully, and completely. Our own situations ourselves. And as we run around in different directions and spinning our wheels trying to find help, help us to realize that we need you first and above all things. We ask that you will help us to have healing where we are hurting. And Father, we ask healing and we ask for grace to cover every broken place, every wound for all of our participants that are on the day. And God, we thank you that you are able to do far more than we can even ask or think. And you love us and you are our Father, and we thank you for restoring us and helping us through all of the things that we must go through, and help us to know that you never waste our pain or our suffering, and that we need you tonight. And we ask that you continue to be with us and help us that throughout the holidays that you are always present. It's in Jesus' name and for his sake that we pray. Amen, amen, amen.
Okay, this is Sarah Kalanda Carmouche again. I am going to be giving a little brief description of what is therapeutic journaling. Therapeutic journaling is the process of writing out your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. The benefits of therapeutic journaling: it helps you make sense of your thoughts and your experiences, helps you to recognize any negative thought patterns, feelings, or behaviors, provides you with the opportunity to self-reflect. It also gives you an opportunity to think about an experience from a different perspective. Who is this session for? It is for anyone who is feeling the heaviness from the upcoming holiday season and would like to find a technique to help them deal with those feelings in a positive way. And with the panelists that we have here tonight, I think they will definitely be able to give us some tips and guide us through the journaling process. The next person that I have up is, she is a poet from Monroe, Louisiana. She was born in Winsboro, Louisiana, and she was raised in Monroe, Louisiana. Shakia Bennett, she is the 41-year-old mother of 3 beautiful blessings, Cambry, Caden, and Cameron. She is a ULM graduate and employee. She is a member of the Mount Olivet Baptist Missionary Baptist Church in Monroe, Louisiana, which is my hometown. I actually have never met Shakia, but she was highly referred to me by an old church member of mine, and they are in poetic group called Poetically Poetic. Her motto is putting words on paper has been healing, and verbalizing them has been therapeutic. When you find your light and voice, use it. Never allow anyone to dim or put it out. You never know who you're helping to find their way. And she is going to give us a poem tonight. It is called A Hole for the Holidays. Shakia, I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this poem is entitled A Hole for the Holidays. Holidays definitely have not been the same for me since December 25th, 2009, when my dad was unexpectedly stripped from us. The day to celebrate the birth of Christ would now become the day that I am reminded that I will commemorate the death of my dad. Made the local news. It is cold now, colder than cold. And to still not know who took his life, his soul, it was rough. It was a major adjustment. No more man of the house, no more laughter every hour. How was mama gonna make it? What was mama going to do? How was she going to continue to survive? When her provider, her lover, and her best friend was gone, leaving her sad and blue. I witnessed her resilience. I also witnessed her strength. She did what just about any person would do. She continued to live. After his death, I would periodically feel my dad's presence. I would say that he left me small reminders that he was not too far in the distance. Paper clips they were, distorted and bent out of shape. I would always find them in the oddest places. I have quite the collection he made. You see, he was a mechanic by occupation, so it was not unusual for him to occasionally use a paperclip to test something here or to try out something there. I guess a wrench would have been out of the question, or maybe a socket joint. I always wondered why my mom did not think this quite strange or call me crazy when I talked. You see, he was leaving her a trail of clips of her own to reassure her that she is forever in his heart. Almost 13 years of no more phone calls, no more family dinners, no more animated stories, no more words of wisdom about life. My children of my own, not knowing their pawpaw. Eventually, no more paperclips. Healing comes in all forms, and cheers to shedding of the old scars. Healing has to happen no matter how it comes. Through therapy, counseling, journaling. Speak, write, and let your words flow. Purging and healing, it is the way to go. Sad I used to be, but not anymore. God gave me precious memories that I will forever adore.
Thank you, Shakia. That was beautiful. Next, we would have Sarah Diane Lomas that would give us an intro of our next set of panelists.
Good evening. Our first panelist I would like to introduce is Tarkisha M. Wallace. She is a licensed professional counselor and the owner of SOAR Counseling Consulting Services, where she provides individual, couple, and family counseling services and facilitates training and development workshops. She is also a Louisiana board-approved LPC supervisor. Ms. Wallace did her Master of Arts in Student Personnel Services Counseling at Northwestern State University of Louisiana in May 2008, as well as her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology with a minor in speech in May of 2005. In March of 2011, Ms. Wallace earned state licensure through the Louisiana Professional Counselor Board of Louisiana. Tarkeisha is also a published author of the book entitled Little Girl Arise. Our next panelist is Robin Palms Bentley. She is a licensed professional counselor and the co-owner of Bentley Wellness Associates, LLC, a private practice counseling agency in which they provide individual and family counseling and development workshops. She is also a Louisiana board-approved LPC supervisor. Robin completed her master's in mental health counseling with a concentration in school counseling from the Southern University, as well as her Bachelor of Science in Psychology with a minor in sociology from LSU. She is currently a doctoral student in higher education leadership at LSU. In addition, professionally, Robin serves as an early college counselor at the University Academy, which is a K-12 virtual charter school where she works on addressing the academic, social, emotional development, and college and career readiness needs of the students, and she recently became a certified anger specialist.
Thank you for that introduction, Sarah Lomas. Now we will begin the presentation that is about seasonal affective disorder as well as grief. You can go one more slide. Okay, so what is seasonal affective disorder? Seasonal affective disorder, basically it's broken down. It's a type of depression that is related to the change in the seasons. And so when we look at the word affective, affect, that means your mood is changing. So typically this appears during late fall, early winter, basically right about now when we see the getting darker sooner, our days are getting shorter. This is when we see most people come in complaining or having issues with this type of disorder. It's also called the winter blues or seasonal depression. So typically when people are having issues right about now, it's because the days are shorter, it gets darker quicker. And so our bodies are basically trained to react to light. And so that's where we get this from. So next we're going to talk about, next slide. We're going to talk about what are some of the signs and symptoms that people may experience during this time. So as I shared before, it's a depression disorder. And so I do want to make it very clear that some of these symptoms that I talk about today are things that you may be experiencing. And a lot of people have different type of adjustments as the season change. And just because you're experiencing some of the symptomology, it doesn't necessarily pinpoint it down to you have this disorder. It's just that we want you to be aware of the signs and symptoms in the event that you or a family member are going through these things. When you really want to look at really kind of reaching out to a healthcare professional or a therapist, is when these symptoms become so bad that it affects your interactions with your family. It's affecting your work life. It's affecting things where you're not able to interact with your children. So when it gets on that level, I mean, we're obviously going to give you tips and coping skills to deal with the symptoms. But if you feel that it's to that level, then you definitely want to reach out to someone. So some of the signs and symptoms that you may be experiencing or know someone who's experiencing is feeling depressed most of the day or nearly every day. And so, I'm not sure if just like when you go to a medical professional or a doctor, they want to know when's the onset, how long it's been happening, and for how long do the symptoms occur. So typically during this time, with the change of the seasons, it's getting cooler. In South Louisiana, not really that much, but typically it's getting cooler. Like I said earlier, it's getting darker quicker. So, I saw a meme that said, this change in time came along with a dose of melatonin, because you're getting in bed earlier, you're seeing that it's darker outside, so you kind of start shutting your day down quicker. And so sometimes this brings about depressed feelings. You're not able to, get as much done as you usually are. You're not able to interact with others. So another symptom is losing interest in activities. So like I said before, you may have been going to the gym after work, or, going to happy hour with friends. But now, since, it's dark outside, your body's telling you it's time to go inside, you're losing interest in those activities. You have low energy. You're sleeping way more than you normally would. You're in bed, you're not being interactive with other people, or you could be having problems sleeping. You could have a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep, or you could be sleeping more. So these are the type of changes that you want to be aware of. Change in appetite. Typically around the holiday times, you're more inclined to want heavy carbs because we're used to that comfort food. So you're reaching for the cakes, you're reaching for, pot pies, things like that. So the change in appetite is something that you want to look at as well. And so oftentimes people are saying, what causes this? Like, why around Christmas or why around Thanksgiving do I start to feel sad? Do I start to feel, despondent, not wanting to interact with people? And there are many causes that could attribute to this. One is your drop in serotonin levels. As I shared before, the sunlight is something that we might not realize has such an effect on us, but that is something that is typical to drop during this time because you have a reduced access to sunlight. And so this drop in serotonin can lead to depression, as well as melatonin. So, melatonin impacts our sleep. And, some people take melatonin to go to sleep, but during this time when your body is reacting to the environment, that could affect your pattern and mood for sleep as well. And then the circadian rhythm disruption, again, all aligned with the sunlight. So if you have a decrease in sunlight, that can disrupt your body's internal clock. So we're quicker to get in bed because it's dark, or you're in bed early, but then you're not able to go to sleep because you're not used to being asleep. So, that kind of messes with how your body is regulating everything. And so for some people, they have no issue with the time change. For some people, the change in seasons does not affect them. But if you are dealing with these type of things, like if you're dealing with the seasonal affective issues, some people are more susceptible to deal with this. Next slide. Okay, and so now we'll talk about what are some of the tips that can help you get through this season. So if you're somebody who, you can really resonate with some of these symptoms, or you have a family member that you see is affected by this, you can definitely, reach out to them and share with them some of these techniques that are shown to help. So as I said before, if you are you're really affected by the lack of sunlight. So one of the things that we advise people to do is, I know sometimes it might be hard, but wake up 20 to 30 minutes earlier, because the sun is coming up earlier. You're just not awake yet. So it's important for you to wake up a little bit earlier so you can get more access to that sunlight. Sometimes we have to pull the blinds back, and we have to really kind of be intentional about getting that extra time. Vitamin D, Black women are notorious for having a deficiency in vitamin D. So that's something that you should definitely reach out to your primary care physician about, getting on a dose of vitamin D that will help kind of counteract your lack of sunlight. In addition to eating a healthy, balanced diet, like I said before, during these winter months, our bodies are, it's just kind of like a hibernation type thing. We want to pack on, get in those carbs and that comfort food, but be sure that you're eating a nutritious diet where, you're partaking with the sweet potatoes and the root vegetables, beets, things like that. You want to get those in to be nourishment to your body for the lack of sun that you may be experiencing. Also increase activity or maintain it. If you're someone that exercises, it is you typically exercise, and now you are less prone to do so because your mood has changed, or you can't go outside like you usually do. Kind of figure out how to alter that. Do a home workout. Do maybe walk in the morning. Make sure that you're getting that level of serotonin that your body needs to keep, the happy endorphins going. On the emotional level, and we'll definitely get into this later about journaling. Start a gratitude journal. Think about, during this time when you're depressed, you're not wanting to engage with other people. You're not wanting to physically do anything. And so it's important to sit back and think about, be introspective and think about the things you are grateful for, because this is just a period of time. Seasonal affective disorder is typically just around the season. So you're seeing through the fall and winter months. All the other months, you may not experience this. So think about those positive times and those things that you are grateful for, and focus your energy on that. A lot of the therapeutic interventions that are used for people is identifying the negative thoughts. Like, so when you're in your room and you're, tend to ruminate or think about these feelings of hopelessness and things like that, you want to identify those negative thoughts and then counteract them. And so those are things that you can work on the emotional level that will be beneficial. Also, one thing that is on the list is to do one thing a day that makes you happy. Make sure that you intentionally incorporate that in your day so that you have something to look forward to. In regards to the social thing, maintain your social relationships. Push yourself to say, like, okay, for the past 2 weeks, I've been getting in bed at 6 o'clock. I'm not going to do that today. Let me send a text to my best friend. Let me send a text to my line sister and say, okay, I'm going to meet you at this restaurant at 7, we'll do this, because you're being intentional about counteracting some of the behaviors that you typically do. And reach out for help. Sometimes it's hard for us to say, this is not my norm, I need help. You have to push past that, because everybody is in the hustle and bustle of the holidays, and that in and of itself is stressful. And so if you don't reach out for help, somebody might not know that you need it, and then you might internalize that and say, well, nobody reached out to me, so take it upon yourself and reach out for help. Create a schedule and stick to it. Be intentional about your time, and just kind of combat what you're dealing with. Read a fictional book, something that can take you out of how you currently feel and just kind of escape for a little bit. Like I said before, get outside, get the sunlight that you can. Sometimes you have to wake up earlier. Next slide. So now Tarkisha will be talking about feelings of grief during the holidays. She's going to speak on the triggers as well as some coping skills that you can enlist during this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robin, for sharing that information. As we all know, grief is really unpredictable, and we often see an influx of the signs, the symptoms, and experiencing the triggers around the holidays, because the holidays tend to be a significant trigger for grief. And so some of the signs and symptoms I've listed here are some of the internal things that we experience. And those are the intense sorrow, pain, and rumination over the loss. So we're really thinking about it. You know, it stays on our mind. We're processing it. Every little thing reminds us of a lost loved one. And I do want to insert here that loss can be anything. It could be a job. It can be a relationship. It can be a death. So there are a variety of reasons we may experience loss, and some of these things are indicators that we are grieving. Okay, so then we have focus on little else outside of the death of our loved ones, numbness or detachment, problems engaging with friends. We have the hopelessness and despair, apathy. We feel like we don't care, that nothing really matters. We experience more low self-esteem, anger, blaming others, pointing the finger. And one of the big things that we experience is guilt, regret, and self-blame for a variety of reasons. There are also physical signs and symptoms. Next slide, please, of grief. And those include shortness of breath, headaches, stomach ache, more frequent colds or other infections, reduced appetite and weight changes, fatigue and problems sleeping, weakness, muscle tension, chest pain, and pounding heart. So what I really encourage individuals to do is to listen to your body. Pay attention to how your body is responding, how your body is interacting, what your body is doing, especially during these times. Because there are several things that we'll talk about, folks, in just a minute, that trigger it. There are literally days, because I experienced grief myself. There are literally days I am fine. I'm having a great day. I'm productive. I'm interactive. I want to get out. I want to engage with my family and my friends. And then there are days that I've totally shut down. And those on the outside looking in, they have no idea why. They just like, oh, she flipped. And literally sometimes it's in the same day. Like I'll start my day off and I'm feeling really good. And then there's a reminder. There's a scent that I smell. You know, there's something an activity that I would do with a loved one, right? Or there is an activity, in my case, that I see other people doing with their family members, and it triggers something in you. So there are things that you want to make sure you're paying attention to, all of the signs and symptoms, and then seek help. So because grief is unpredictable, you want to always have access to ways of coping with that grief. You don't ever want to be without a coping regimen, right? So I like to tell people to kind of have your little toolbox. When I get in this mood, when I notice my behavior changing, when I notice my mood changing, just as with the seasonal affective disorder, that I have things that I can immediately go to. In those times are not the times to start creating a plan. It is necessary to already have a plan in place. Because in the midst of a grieving episode, we are not rationally thinking in order to develop something that is strategic and helpful for us in order to work through those moments. So you want to have something in place already. Before we get to the triggers of grief, now that you know the signs and symptoms, I want to explain the stages of grief. Now, the first thing I will say about these 5 stages of grief is that they do not happen in order. Do not think that because I, maneuver through denial, then anger, then bargaining, I'm done with those phases. And one, that they'll never come back, or that they're going to go in the exact order that I present them in. Sometimes when I'm working with clients, I teach them in different orders because they literally come and go in waves and in different order. It does not, there's no equation to how grief will show up. So this is the way, of course, it's designed and taught, but again, grief can be, the stages of grief can be maneuvered in different various ways. You can experience one stage for longer. You know, you can be triggered in different stages at the same time, and you can, you know, kind of go back and forth. So the first one is denial. And this is where we have our tendency to help minimize the overwhelming pain and loss. It takes time to adjust to our reality. We are not accepting of what happened. I can't believe that this loved one is gone. I can't believe that my relationship ended in this way. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that the job that I worked on for X amount of years is gone. Even when in 2020, it was unbelievable that our norms were shifting and we were not able to gather. Because if you remember back then, a lot of our holidays, we were not able to gather as a big family. We may have gotten together as our smaller immediate families, but we're used to getting together, especially in our culture, as a big family. And so we have a hard time us accepting and adjusting. Okay. And so we tend to try to block that out. During this stage of grieving, our reality has shifted completely. It can take our minds time to adjust to that new reality, reflect on the experiences we shared with the person or the thing that we lost, and we might find ourselves wondering, how do we move forward? So we're really challenging ourselves to think, what do I do next? And so we kind of stay in that phase. Denial is not only an attempt to pretend that the loss did not exist, we are also trying to absorb and understand what's happening. So we're trying to rationalize, we're trying to wrap our mind around that this thing happens. This thing has happened, I'm sorry. Then we have anger, and this is where we are trying to adjust to a new reality, and we are likely experiencing an extreme emotional discomfort. You'll see the outbursts. You'll see the mood change. You'll see the interactions change with others. We may not be as engaging or friendly as others. People, often see me as friendly, and then if they see me snap, they're like, well, what's going on? Or they see that mood change. And it's not that we're taking a direct attack on someone else, but we're adjusting to what was, right? And what no longer is. So while we're trying to adjust to this new reality, there is so much to process that anger may feel like it allows us an emotional outlet. So we feel like this is the way I can get it out, because in most cases, even when we think about animals, we are not, it is hard to say that there's ever a time that we're truly at peace at a loss. Even if we think we have time to prepare, like when we know that someone is transitioning, or we know that they're coming with layoffs, or we see like the end of a relationship developing, even when that thing ends, it's hard to accept and realize that this is our new reality. So keep in mind that anger does not require us to be very vulnerable. However, it may feel socially acceptable than admitting we are scared. Okay, so that anger is really probably rooted in fear of what life is going to be like as we move forward with this significant change. Then we have bargaining, the one that I tend to favor a little bit. And that's when it's an expression of being willing to do anything to alleviate this pain, anything to minimize the pain. We really want to find a way. How can I trade this off? How can I, honestly, some people feel like, what can I do to trade places with whatever is about to happen, especially if it's something we kind of see. But what can I do to exchange the pain that I'm feeling for something different? So when bargaining starts to take place, we often direct our request to a higher power or something bigger than us that may be able to influence a different outcome. Bargaining during the grieving process can come in the form of a variety of promises, such as, God, if you can heal this person, I will turn my life around. I promise to be better if you will let this person live. I'll never get angry again if you can stop him or her from dying or leaving me. These are things that we want to put ourselves in a position to where we can prevent what we know may be coming. So we're trying to find something to exchange so that we don't have to endure the pain. Then the depression, which is a phase that we're all very familiar with. I think that the depressive phase of Grief is one that we acknowledge first, and I probably really reconcile with. We don't think that the others are not as evident. We're more familiar with depression, and that's when we begin to feel the loss of our loved one more abundantly. We feel that sadness, we feel that distance, we feel that feeling of loneliness sometimes. And so it comes at times when our imagination calms down and we slowly start to look at the reality of the present situation. Bargaining no longer feels like an option, and we are faced with what's happening. In the depressive stage of grief, we start to feel the loss of our loved one more. Once that panic begins to subside and we are like facing reality, the emotional fog clears and the loss feels more present and unavoidable. We then really have to deal with the thing, right? We come face to face with our reality. And those emotions and feelings like sadness, being alone, withdrawal, those things begin to set in. Again, you can maneuver through all of these phases multiple times, and it's not only immediate, right? Even, I don't know, for those who know me, I had a son who passed away. It's been 17 years now, and I still maneuver through some of these phases of grief. They don't last as long. I believe that you begin to build, like I said, your toolbox and learn skills to help you maneuver pretty quickly, but you still experience them. Even when we get to this final stage of grief, you can go back through these phases to some extent, and that's acceptance. And that's when we're no longer resisting the reality of our situation. However, it is not that we no longer feel the pain. So we've come to grips or to terms with, this is what has happened. This is my new reality, my new norm. And I'm accepting of it, but it still hurts. It's still disappointing. I'm still sad. I still miss this person. And that affects our ability to grieve sometimes, right? And so again, even if we get to acceptance, there may still be time that I really just can't believe this. I really can't believe that person is no longer here, especially during the holidays. I've had several clients who've told me, I really can't believe I have to cook Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner and my mom isn't here. And so one of the things, and I learned, listen, I tell my clients all the time, I do my research on TV and Instagram, okay? And I use things that I feel like people have said work, or they at least look like they work to me. And so on several movies I've watched, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, so it'll be familiar to you, I see that people bring a picture of their loved one into the kitchen when they're cooking. And literally, I would invite that person into the space. Now, we know physically that person is not here and cannot be here, but we can remember their spirit. We can remember the love and the enjoyment that they brought to that holiday season or to whatever family gathering. Another one that I love to do is tell my clients to create a memory box. And especially during holidays or family gatherings, in order to include the memory of that person, to have each family member jot down a good memory about that person, drop it in the box. So if it's Christmas or if it's Thanksgiving, you can get a little pumpkin or a little decorative Christmas box and have everybody drop their memory, and then devote a small time or a long time, whatever is most comfortable for you and your family. Drop a box, take time, to go through the memories in that box and watch how, yes, it may trigger the longing for that family member to be there, but it also will put you in a good space and remember them well during that time. Okay, next slide, please. So here are some of the triggers to grief, and these are just a very few. I could have gone on multiple slides, but for the sake of time, I saved you. But these are some of the triggers for grief. There are others like scents. Like I told you, there are scents. You can smell something and it reminds you of a person. That's the cologne my grandfather wore. That's the scent my grandmother wore. You can see things. You can hear particular songs. So there are lots of things that trigger what I find triggers all of our senses that tend to remind us or send us back to a place of where we're grieving. And that just means those emotions are resurfacing, right? So they may lay dormant for a little while, but then different things can bring them back up and out. Okay, next slide. All right. So here are some of the coping skills that I would highly recommend that you add to your toolbox. Number one, I'll say this, and I'm pretty sure that any other licensed provider who's here tonight would agree. Get you a therapist. This is where I always start. Of course, it's not on here because I can say that without ever needing a prompt, right? Get you a therapist. It does not matter if it's somebody that you see weekly, every other week, or monthly. I literally tell my clients you can have me for PRN. You may not want to see me every week. You may not have a need to see me every week. But as you need something, you don't want to go through the trouble of being in the midst of a crisis or a heightened situation and then have to find a therapist. I have found that's the hardest time, to find one. I have found whenever I get a call for a client, a potential client, and they are like, look, I'm at my wit's end. It's the time that I'm full and I don't have any, availability. And I'm calling all my colleagues, trying to get them in. So find you somebody when things are normal, when things are fine. You don't go in, you don't have to go to therapy every week, right? I believe there's a need to process in between sessions and put into practice the things that you are learning so that you can know if this works. Because every coping skill here that I have for you guys, that's not going to work for everybody. You'll be like, Tarkeisha, that one was not for me. I don't like doing that. I don't like massages. I don't want people touching all over me. And that's fine. But you have to try the things out to see if they work for you. And so I'm saying that to say, therapy goes beyond the session. It goes beyond the virtual session. It goes beyond the face-to-face session. You have to take those things that you practice and that you learn and you talk about and do them outside of the therapeutic room. You don't have to be in deep crisis to go to therapy. Sometimes my clients and we talk about TV, and in some kind of way, it relates to their life. We talk about, their regular day-to-day life. Doesn't always have to be deep. So the very first thing that I recommend for you to do is to find you a therapist, someone that you trust. I cannot emphasize that enough. Someone that you trust, because you want to be able to feel safe to open up. You want to engage in daily self-care activities. It's not realistic that every day I can go get a massage. It's my most favorite. Well, my most favorite self-care activity is traveling, okay? But between traveling and massages, I can't go and get those every day. So I have to find things that I can do at home. So yours may be shopping. It is probably not the most financially responsible thing to go shop every time you experience a mood. So find things that you can do at home, like cooking your favorite meal, like saying, you know what, we're not cooking at all tonight. We're ordering in. I've had a long day. And for me, I'm going to make the sacrifice, spend a little so that I don't have to have the demand of cooking. Taking a bubble bath, having a nice glass of wine, reading your devotional. One of my growing favorites is listening to an audio book or a podcast, doing things that feed back into you. Connection. So connecting with others. Do not isolate when you grieve. Do not isolate when you grieve. I said a third time, just have to tell myself, do not isolate when you grieve. We generally retreat. We go inward. We want to be with ourselves, right? It is the worst thing to do because, again, as Robin pointed out, we get to have those ruminating thoughts. We get to overthink it, and everything is wrong when we do that. So connect with others. Even if it's a quick text to say, hey, Robin, I'm really struggling today. So Robin can know to check in on me, or if she has time, maybe she'll stop by. Or like she said, she may call and say, hey, well, I'll go on a walk with you. I need to get out into the sun as well. I'll go out on a walk. So connect with others. Be creative. Be creative. Don't cook your regular dinner. Like, do something that's fun, or don't cook alone. Add that creativity and the connection with others. Ask your children or your significant other to come into the kitchen with you. I say this very often to my clients. I try to say it to them at least every few sessions. Be gentle with yourself, okay? And so that's that show self-compassion. Be gentle with you. There's enough people who give us a hard time. At work, they're pulling on us and they're making demands. At home, they're making demands and they need things of us. In traffic, someone blew at us and we just were trying to check our phone real quick. So you have to be gentle with yourself. The rest of the world has enough access to punch on us a little bit, we have to make sure that we soothe ourselves and we're compassionate. So be gentle with yourself. Use breathing and meditation. So meditation is not easy. Start little. I'm not very good with meditation because everything goes up here. But I recently learned on a trip that you're not going to quiet the thought, but you want to settle them. Like the voices, and I'm not saying like the voices as in a schizophrenic client or someone with schizophrenia, but like the thoughts, the things that you have to do. Because when I've tried meditation, I was like, I'm just thinking about all the things that I could be doing instead of meditating. Like I'm taking up space, I'm taking up time. Those things just settle, okay? And so we want to use our deep breathing. And if we had time, we go through a deep breathing. But you guys know, and I tell people, be intentional with your deep breathing. Don't, because you're still exciting yourself. You have to bring yourself to calm yourself down, right? And so you want, when you're deep breathing, I would do it with slow music, something that's soothing, and I would use counting with it to help show you're intentionally deep breathing. And then my favorite, and I said it wasn't on here, but clearly I forgot I did put it at the end, therapy. So we can always begin and end with therapy, okay? Making sure you connect with someone, again, that you trust, because you're trusting them with I tell people all the time, I like to get naked with my therapist. She knows everything about me, probably some things that she does not want to know, but you want to be able to have that relationship. Someone asked me last night, just in a casual conversation, do I tell them everything? I said, tell them everything. You will not surprise your therapist, but you want to be able to be that vulnerable and that open, okay? Next slide. So Robin included here, strength is the courage we find during life's most difficult times that makes our souls grow. And let me tell you, if you have not experienced growth, you probably haven't experienced a challenge in life. Those challenging situations, they are rough, but I promise you, if you get through them, you will definitely grow from it. And then we included here a list of resources for you. If you are in need of a therapist, if you are in need of some type of group format, if you are in a crisis, these are some of the places you can go and find a therapist. I'm not sure about Robin, but I'm currently full to capacity. And she'll be able to share real briefly if you're able to reach out, but there are resources, and I am able to help connect you to other providers. And so feel free to reach out to either one of us, even if we are not open, or we cannot take you on as a client directly. We can always refer you to someone who's able to provide and take really good care of you. Thank y'all so much. Listen, if we have said nothing more, get your therapist and get out. This seasonal depression is real. Okay, it's real. On your lunch break, don't sit in your office, sit outside, take a walk outside. Like, even if it's only for 5 minutes, you have to make sure you remain active, because you'll be like me and sleep at 9 o'clock or 9:30 and not even realize it. Or get your dog, they'll make you go and walk them. Okay, so y'all have a happy holiday season, and I hope that the information we shared here is helpful as you maneuver and experience the holidays this season.
Thank you, Robin and Tarkeisha, for that wonderful presentation. I definitely learned a few things. Right now, we're going to take just a brief moment and use our Q&A. If anyone has any questions for any one of the panelists. Okay, we have a question here. How often should we see a therapist?
So I'd say it depends on your need. And I inform my clients, we can determine that during their initial sessions. And so, like I said, sometimes there's a need to see your therapist weekly. It really depends on what you're working on, what the identified issue is. There are also some people who prefer to meet every other week because, again, they want to process in between. They don't want to feel like dang, I just had therapy last week. I haven't been able to apply what I've learned. There are some people who are immediately gonna apply. You know, they're gonna get out of session on Monday, and Monday evening they're working on the things that we've talked about. And so it really just depends on your need level, the identified issues. Would you agree, Robin, or have a different suggestion?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sometimes we'll have clients come in and, you know, sometimes if they're coming in when there is a direct need, then sometimes it will be weekly. But then as we progress and they're able to enlist some of their coping mechanisms and being able to use some of the strategies that we talk about, then we're able to, you know, stretch out the sessions in between. So like Tarkisha said, it really kind of depends on what, you know, you're going through. And that's definitely a conversation that you and your therapist have and come to a combined decision on.
Only have a few. Okay. Next question was, what are some questions to research or ask to determine if you want to choose someone as your therapist?
So I recommend you try your therapist on. I tell people all the time. And it may not be a specific question that you ask to see if they're the ideal fit for you, but it may be the feel that you get for them. If they're open enough, if there's someone that is going to be very, very rigid, or they're very relaxed. Most of my clients will tell you, I'm really relaxed. I'm laid back. Now, if I have to sit up and put my, you know, really, really professional hat on, I do. But that's really intense, and we're already coming to therapy for somewhat intense situations. So I think it's more of a feel, but you can ask them things like, what is their theoretical orientation? So what's their way of doing therapy? How do you engage with me? I am a person-centered therapist. So my client is the prioritized person in the therapy. I may have an agenda when I come to session, but whatever that client brings to session becomes my priority. I'm also solution focused. So once we're into therapy by session 3 or 4, I am looking for ways that we can problem solve and find solutions. And I don't start at the beginning because I need to get to know my client first, but I start pretty early on because what I have found is not every resolution is going to work for each client, right? So just because deep breathing works for this client does not mean it's going to work for the next person. So really asking them the small questions like, you know, are you willing to see me face to face? If you know virtual is not a thing for you, you're not going to come to me because I only offer virtual, right? So the things that you find to be necessary or important to you, those are the things you want to ask. But more than anything, I think it's about what that relationship, if I'm able to build a relationship with that person, feel comfortable with them, and be able to build trust.
Okay, thank you, Tarkisha. We have one Sarah that made an excellent ideal or suggestion on how to deal with grief. Sarah Angel Lloyd. She said that sometimes that she just go to her mother's resting place and just have a talk with her, and she find that helps during her time of holiday grief. So I think that is a great way to process. Another one of our questions is, how can I be supportive to someone who has SAD?
So, you know, some of the techniques that, some of the tips that I shared, that's how you can be supportive. So, you know, helping them to do those things. So like I said, to wake up earlier, if you want to be their wake up call, if you want to go with them on a walk, if you want to, you know, say, let's do dinner together, or things like that, where they're engaging and getting out of that isolated behavior. So you're able to just be of assistance in that area. And also, you know, we give our friends pep talks. And so if you notice that they are starting to isolate, if you notice they're not coming to girls' nights, if you notice that they're becoming, in that depressed mood, be real with your friend and share with them, like, this is what I'm seeing. I'm here to help you. And so when people feel like they're less alone in what they're going through, that's when they're able to open up and actually deal with it.
Thank you, Robin. Next question is seasonal depression usually treated with medication? Due to its temporary nature, is it best not to get started on an antidepressant that might have withdrawals?
Yeah, so it can be treated with medication. Again, that's something that you would speak to your primary care physician about if that's something that you're interested in starting. I always am an advocate for advocating for your own health. So if you know that you're a person, like you said, you're worried about withdrawals, ask your physician, what can I do that, maybe a more homeopathic remedy that would be beneficial. You just want to make sure that you stay ahead of it. And so if you're a person that getting outside is helpful, getting the vitamin D is helpful, taking omega-3 is something that helps you, then that's the route you go. If you feel that it's something that may be out of your control and you need additional support, that medication would help, then again, reach out to your primary care physician.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Next question is, what do you suggest for people who do everything to avoid grief and it manifests in them being constantly overwhelmed?
Okay, so I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is to really try to assess why you're avoiding that grief. And in most circumstances, it's because we don't want to feel. We're avoiding the feels of what that's like. Or again, we're in denial. And so we don't want to accept what has. And so if I push that grief away, I don't have to feel and I don't have to accept. But then what I'm seeing based on this question is that you're creating anxiety for yourself because I'm overwhelmed and I'm avoiding not thinking about it. And it takes a lot of energy to do that. And so what I recommend is just start slow. You may not be ready to divulge it all, when you go to therapy or when you talk to someone or when you start dealing with that issue. Start in small pieces. I did an assessment today and I asked the client a question. She was like, yeah, that happened, but I'm not ready to talk about it. And so allow your therapist to help guide you. So therapy is not where you're going to come and we give you all the answers. I don't have all the answers. How I wish that I would. That I did. I don't have all the answers, but we're a guide. We help you figure it out for yourself, because the things that Tarkeisha will do may not work for the next person, right? And so I never like to tell clients what to do, because if it backfires, I do not want them to come and say, well, Tarkeisha, you told me to do this. So we work together to find a plan that's most comfortable for you. Grief is not easy. And though you think you're avoiding it, or you stand away from it, it's just manifesting in another way. And it seems that it could potentially be manifesting in anxiety. So then you're dealing with two big things, right? So I highly recommend just start talking about it, just in small doses. You don't have to completely lay it out all bare in the first session, just at least enough to give you a little bit of room to breathe.
Thank you, Tarkeisha. Next, we have two more questions. What is the cost of a therapy session?
So it varies. It varies on the professional. It varies on your insurance. Some of us accept insurance, some do not. Sometimes there is a therapist who might provide a sliding scale. So it varies. I don't want to say a range, because it is really a wide range. Just depends on your therapist. I think sometimes people take into consideration their experience level, the issue that they may be dealing with as it relates to. Some have very particular areas that they work in. So it is a wide range, but most providers are open about their fee. And so if you saw some of the resources like Therapy for Black Girls and Psychology Today, as well as some of the other providers on their websites, or when you go to these directories, they'll have a range. Each therapist, you'll be able to look up a therapist in your area, and they'll have a range of what their sessions cost. And then they'll also have what insurances they accept, or if they don't accept insurances at all. So it's a wide range, but people are generally open about it. It's not a secret. So if you have a provider that you'd like to see, just ask them, hey, what's your fee? I need to know if I'm going to be able to cover it out of pocket or if my insurance will be able to.
Thank you, Tarkisha. Last question. How should you deal with a therapist that has appointment scheduling issues and seem as if they lack professionalism in that area when you've built a certain level of comfortability with them?
I was going to allow Robin to answer that one, but one thing I would ask to be honest, if you establish a positive rapport with them, I would ask them, has there been a shift in their scheduling and something that you need to adjust, right? So before you say, forget it, I'm not going to see that therapist again, I'm just going to go and find me someone else, I would ask that person, especially if you've developed a rapport, you've made some progress, you don't want to completely change your therapist, ask them the question, has there been a change in your schedule? Because we have to remember, our therapists are people too. They're human too, and their lives change. And, sometimes we lose balance as well. And we're trying to figure it out as well. Just because we are presenting, like we have it all together, when the camera goes off, we are trying to sort and settle as well. So I would ask the person, hey, has there been a change in your schedule? I notice we haven't been as consistent as before. And for me and my well-being and my progress, I want to stay on a consistent scheduling basis. Has anything changed with you? So, because if so, I want to be able to adjust my schedule so that we can stay in a therapeutic relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just to kind of piggyback, therapists are people too, and they come with, issues just as anyone else. And I think, again, if you have that relationship, you're paying your money for a service. So I would just, definitely reach out and say, I really value the service that you're providing for me. And, this is something that I want to do. Therapy is important to me. Can we come to a mutual agreement on our scheduling? Because, this is something that I want to do. And I think that kind of brings people back into check, because sometimes it's hard to have session after session after session and things going on with life, but it's important to be very transparent and say, this is something that's important to me, and work with them.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for the great question and answer session. Now we're going to move it to, I'm going to turn it over to our second Vice President, Erica Williams, to introduce our last panelist.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing national best-selling author, Lorna Lewis. Lorna is the author of Dirty Little Secrets, Dirty Little Secrets 2, Expect the Unexpected, Double Down and Dirty, and Torn, A Daughter's Love. She's also written many short stories, a daily devotional, and has contributed to 2 anthologies, The Motherhood Diaries and The Good Enough Mom. In 2018, Lorna wrote and produced her first short film, Secrets from the Bayou. She is the CEO of LCL Publishing, LLC, and the mastermind behind Changing Lives the Right Way, a coaching program for aspiring authors. Lorna says she loves helping people turn their struggles into sentences, their wisdom into words, and their battles into books. Lorna is a graduate of Southern University and a member of the Baton Rouge Delta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. I present to you Mrs. Lorna Lewis.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, ladies. I am so excited to be here. Anything about writing, as you can imagine from my bio, I'm ready to talk about. And please send positive vibes to my internet, because for some reason it keeps saying it's unstable. So I am hoping I can get through this without it glitching too bad. I wanted to just talk a quick second about therapeutic journaling. I started journaling 32 years ago. I had no idea I was doing therapeutic journaling. I didn't know it was something that existed. I didn't know there was a name. I didn't know it had been researched. All I knew was I had all these feelings inside that I had to get out. So during that time, I lost my mom, and my dad was a pastor. So if you can imagine, I'm from a very, very small town. My dad was a pastor in that very, very small town. And during that time, it was, you don't question God. If God did it, it's just what it is. And I'm 13, and I lost my mom. So I could go to my dad and tell him how I was feeling. I didn't feel like I could, even though I'm pretty sure he had those feelings as well. I didn't feel comfortable doing that because all I knew was you don't question God. So I had to write it. So in my journal where it was safe, I could say, hey, God, what's going on? Because I prayed for my mom to live, and she didn't. And I'm not really happy with you right now. It was okay for me to say that there because no one else was going to read it. So getting that out helped me. It helped me to, I felt like I could just breathe because I wasn't holding all of that in. Now, again, I'm 13. I don't know these feelings. I don't understand these feelings. All I know is that they're there. So then years later, I had a son. He passed away at 6 days. Once again, I'm writing. Now, I'm not connecting the two because my mom had passed a long time before my son. So with each loss, again, I had no idea what therapeutic journaling was. All I know is I had to get it out. So, and it's saying my internet is unstable, so I hope y'all can hear me. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. So once I started researching it, I realized that, hey, this is a thing. And it not only helps mentally and emotionally, but it also helps physically based on the research. Because you all know, you keep all of that in, it does start to affect your health. Because it's, you're stressed and you're depressed, and all of that is just on the inside of you. And I know that especially during the holidays, I don't know about you, but I know for me it's anytime, and I have to work on that. I'm not good with talking, especially about my feelings. And I know I need to work on that. I write it, but I don't necessarily want to talk about it. And during the holidays, I think a lot of people are thinking, it's not the time to put what they feel like are burdens on someone else. So because of that, they just keep it bottled up. So instead of doing that, you write about it. So it's at this time that we are going to do an activity with our, hopefully you have paper and pencil. I'm sorry, I should have put that out there with the announcement that you will need paper and pencil, because I do want you to do a journaling activity. But before that, okay, hold up. Someone said to turn my video off. All right, I'm gonna turn my video off, and hopefully that will help my internet. So before we do the journaling activity, I want you to know that there are several types of journaling. There's letter journaling, and that's when you're writing a letter you can write it to yourself You can write it to someone that you feel like you have unfinished business with and you're just not ready to talk to that person. You can write it to someone that you've lost who may be deceased. That's the type of journaling I found myself doing a lot of when my dad passed. So with that, it was just sitting down and writing him a letter, letting him know, what's going on, how things, and it's so funny because I found myself not only writing my part of the letter, but also his part of the letter, because it was, and I know you're probably saying, and I'm writing things that he would say to me. And it made me feel better because it was as crazy as it may sound, it almost felt real, like we were really having a conversation. There are daily entries, and that's just when you write every day what's going on. A lot of times you have so much bottled up throughout the day, and that's just your time to just woosah, just get it all out on paper. You have free writing. Free writing is when you write whatever comes to mind. Guided journaling, you use prompts, and that's what we're going to do tonight. You have mixed art journals. If you love art, that's the type of journal you may want to do, where you mix writing with drawing or coloring. You have a dream journal, and that's for when you're dreaming, and if the dream bothered you, you write it out while it's fresh. Write out those emotions while it's fresh. And then there's the manifestation journal, and with that journal, you are writing the life you want to live, the life you are preparing yourself for, but you write it as if you already have it. You're not writing it like, oh, I want this to happen one day. It's already here. So that's the manifestation journal. So what we're going to do is a mix between guided journaling and free writing. And I say it's a mix because I'm going to give you the prompt, but I don't want you to stifle yourself thinking I have to stick with this prompt. What I want you to do is let whatever comes up come out in your writing. I want you to really just let it all out. So you may start with my prompt, but you may end somewhere totally different, and that is okay. Initially, I was going to do it for 5 minutes, but I think I'm gonna do 3 minutes. But when you're doing it on your own, you need a longer window of time, at least 5 to 10 minutes. And the reason is you're gonna find, like I did, when you, I'm sorry. Okay, you're gonna find that when you start, you're trying really hard to stick with the prompt. It's not until you keep writing that your mind starts thinking of other things. So the longer you write, the better it will be. So, and if you get to a part where you're like, I don't even know what else to say, then that's what you write. I don't even know what else to say. You just write whatever comes to mind. And you will surprise yourself where you end up. I promise you. When I did this activity with another webinar, we were all over the place. And it was fine. But some people had moments where it was, I didn't even realize that was on my mind. Like, where did that come from? Because the thing is, when you're having a conversation with someone, you try to stay on topic. But have you ever had a conversation with someone and you say something or they say something and it brings up another idea, but you're trying to stay on topic? So you're thinking, okay, well, remind me to tell you about this when I'm done, or you just jump to that conversation. But with this, when that comes up, you just write it out. There's no, I have to stay. Our mind always tries to do the right thing most of the time. This is when we are moving into our subconscious mind, where whatever is whatever, so that you can see what am I thinking about right now? And it may cause you to wonder, why is this coming up? And if there's a negative emotion attached to it, then that's something you really need to pay attention to. And if you do have a therapist, then that's something you may want to bring up. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to get your paper and pencil or pen. I'm going to set the timer. I'm going to do 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. And hopefully within that time, you will be able to just write. Again, don't try to stay on topic, just write. So your prompt is, I am grateful because, not necessarily for, I am grateful because, and you start writing what you're grateful, what makes you grateful. And like I said, wherever your mind goes, that's what you write. So I'm gonna start the timer now. $20 seconds. And that's our time. So do you see how quick 3 minutes will pass when you start writing? And I don't know if it happened with you. If you could share, that would be awesome. If you were able to stay on topic, or did your mind wander and you went other places with your writing, which, like I said, is okay for you to do. So would anyone like to share, or were there any ahas or anything that you discovered throughout this short activity? Remember, when you do it on your own, 10 to 15 minutes is going to be best. The longer you write, the more you tend to discover. If it's a short period of time, it's because, like I said, the first few minutes, you trying really hard to stay on the topic. The more you write, the more you find yourself going other places with it. Okay. I stayed on to Latoya, I'm sorry. You want to read those?
I have one attendee that said she stayed on topic. And I have another one that said her mind changed topics many times.
Yeah, it's almost like with Tarkeisha talked about meditating, where you sit, because you are in a place of just allowing your mind to just be free or supposed to be, and not trying to guide it yourself, your mind will start thinking about all these different things. So I really, really, really encourage you, especially during this time, to allow yourself that time to just sit. You may want to play some soothing music, get your favorite beverage, whatever it may be, make an event out of it, and just sit and write. Just let it out. You have something else?
I do. One said they stayed on topic, but I always find myself being reminded that I love the rhythm of writing. Another attendee, I stayed on topic and realized I'm holding on to things I thought that they had let go of. Another comment, this is a question. Where can we find sample journal thought triggers like this?
The prompts,
Yes.
the journal prompts, if all you have to do is Google, if you Google journal prompts, I would look at Pinterest. They have a ton of prompts on Pinterest. But and one thing I wanted to mention, if you start writing and the topic gets very, your writings brings you down, please stop. Because the point is not to write yourself into a dark place. The point of therapeutic journaling is supposed to be reflective and allow you to really, and that's the difference between journaling and writing in a diary. Writing in a diary, you're just writing, what you want, your dreams, your hopes, or whatever happened, the people you like, don't like, whatever. Journaling, especially therapeutic journaling, is supposed to be a reflective activity where you are learning things, discovering things, and allowing yourself, like I said, to let things out. If it gets too heavy, I wouldn't keep going. I would stop, or I would switch it up. Like what we did, I was maybe list some things that you're thankful for, something to really to lift you back up. But again, if you have a therapist, I would bring that up with them. If it was, if it became too much to let them do what they do to help. Anything else with the question and answer? Because if not, that concludes my portion. And like I said, I do recommend that you continue this. Please, it's so helpful.
Thank you, Sarah Lewis, for that journaling session.
You are so welcome. Thank you all for your time.
The only question I see right now is they want to know where can we purchase. Okay, someone is at where can we purchase your journals?
Yes, my journals are on my website, which is just authorlalewis.com.
Okay, and Sarah Lewis, if you will put that in the chat, so they can see. Follow-up question: do you have any prompts in those journals?
I do not, but they are customized journals. So if you say, I would like mine to have prompts, then yours will have prompts. I customize them to your like, to your need, because I don't want you to purchase it just for it to sit there. So whatever it is that you feel like you need in your journal, if I can make it happen, I'm gonna make it happen.
Okay. Okay, now we are coming to the end of our event. I would like to just thank everyone who, all the panelists who helped guide this thing along. You guys were great. Thank you again to our president and second vice president, Sarah LaDuff, for that great meditation, Shakia Bennett for the poem, and Robin and Tarshika and Lorna, of course, for the great material that you guys presented on this evening. Again, I just want to thank the attendees as well. If you check the chat, each one of the ladies did provide their emails if you have any more questions or wanted to make any type of purchases. And if there is nothing else, I hope everyone that's on enjoy the rest of you guys' evenings, and thank you again for spending a little time with us.